So you mentioned on our previous conversation that the toughest decision you've made thus far was making the decision to not go to college. Can you walk us through the mental process that went through you when you made the big decision?
Yeah, and I think for me, especially in, being in Southeast Asia, being in Asia, going to college is a really big thing. It's really important for everybody, all the more in this region, right? Because
Mhm.
obviously it's a privilege. And I think for me, I've been afforded a lot of good opportunities for me to advance my education. And when I was growing up, I was always really, really big on education, and I still am, but I think for very, very different reasons. When I was growing up, I was the kind of student that was really, really always studying. So I'd go home and I'd study for hours. I think all the more during my last 2 years of school. During my last 2 years of school, one of my classmates told me that if I were to describe you in just a few sentences, I would say that you're that person in the class who is quiet and she only talks when she's answering a question from the teacher or laughing. And the question was usually like, or the joke was usually, well, said by the teacher. And all the other things I was doing would be writing notes and studying. I remember I would spend lunch breaks and all the other breaks in school almost always eating or just studying. When I'd go home, I'd study for hours again. My weekends were spent on school-related things. I was that kind of student. So I was really, really big on studying because for me, I felt like, you know, I had one goal in life, and I thought that because if you have quality education, if you work hard in school, that will give you the best opportunities in your life. You'll be successful if you work hard and study hard. And that's the equation I had in my head. So to me, I would study hard, go to a really good college. After really good college, I'd work hard enough to get a really good job. And I was very, very set on like two outcomes. One was go to a good college, get a good job, then be super successful, make money through that. Or two, same thing, but instead of just going to a job, it would be work at a really good company, then start something of my own, and then be really successful of that. It was a very straight line.
Mhm.
And that was something I was really set on. And no one could dispute me on that. Like people would joke and say that, look, you study so hard.
Mhm.
And I was that kind of student who, if you gave me back my test, I would immediately annotate it with all the right answers and say, these are the answers that I think are correct now. And if I answered this on the test, would I be correct? So I think I was really, really, really focused on school back then, and excessive in some ways, right? But it's funny now looking back, right? I mean, who would have expected somebody like that not to end up going to college? And it was a tough decision to make. So I was that kind of student. I was really hard on, I mean, let me repeat. I was that kind of student. I was really big on, well, studying and going to a really good college, right? And the problem for me was that in my head, this was a foolproof plan. I mean, everybody that I knew that was successful seemed to have that route. And then my foolproof plan met the pandemic. And I guess nobody really expected that, especially me. And all of a sudden, I was faced with, well, the decision that, okay, do I go to college and go to college on Zoom? Or do I do something else? Because I felt like, my foolproof plan was really just learn everything, get all the skills in school that I could so I could set up my career. And the thing that I realized was that if I go to college on Zoom, I wouldn't get a lot of the benefits out of college that I would have. And this would be really hard for me, right? Like, I thought cost benefit analysis, if I go to college on Zoom, will even get a job. And then my foolproof plan would be, ruined. So I decided that while it's a pandemic, I would just do something else. It didn't make sense to go to college on Zoom. And during that time, I was really lucky enough to find a good opportunity. So I was thinking, oh, I'm going to learn how to code. I'm going to learn how to learn all these skills during the pandemic. And I was really searching on how I could do those things, how I could learn those skills, right? Then I came across this startup called Avian School online, and I thought, oh wow, this is a new startup. They teach Filipinos to be software engineers in just like 24 weeks, and then they help them get a job. And I saw that they had really good investors. They had a good team. So I thought, okay, how could this go wrong? Like, I'm definitely going to get a good job this way. This is like my savior because my foolproof plan was, destroyed. And now I had this opportunity to find a good job that I could take maybe over the pandemic, and then I'd go to college after, and then I'd get an even better paying job because I have college plus the skills to code. And I thought, like, this is amazing. And so I went to that school. I applied, and I realized that I was actually really, really bad at coding. And I realized that, oh no, my plan was to get all the skills here and then all those other things I said, but now it seems like I'm not a fit for this. Then luckily, I spoke with the founders there of the startup, and they said, hey, why don't you actually join us as our first employee? And I thought, well, what else did I have to do? Like, what else was I doing in this pandemic? So I said, why not, right? And I guess the long story short is that while I worked there as their first employee, I was there for over a year, and I had the best time of my life. For someone who had no job experience, I was doing all of these things. Like, in the first month I was there, I had this goal to close a few sales. So basically, we taught people to be software engineers, and then what I had to do was find hiring partners to hire them, right? So basically, in a month, I actually closed 45 different partnerships from local and global companies, which was like unbelievable because this was my first job, right? And that was just the first month I was there. And over the course of time, I would end up doing all these really exciting things, like helping the startup become the first. Sorry, let me repeat. And while I was there, I would do all of these incredible things that I never thought I'd be able to do. Like, I helped them get into YC as a third startup from the Philippines to ever do that. Obviously, it's not all my work, but being able to be part of something that big was really exciting. I got to do a lot of other things, helping the students, helping the company partners, and doing all of these other things in marketing that I was also tasked to do. And I think the bigger picture there was that, I was doing a lot of these fulfilling, exciting things that allowed me to build a lot of skills, even though I wasn't in college. And it really got me thinking, like, imagine if I went to Zoom college, what would I be doing? Algebra?
Exactly.
Right?